Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honorable Minister, Tara Rivers.
Thank you, Paul, for that short but apt introduction. And good morning, everyone. It really is a pleasure for me to be here, to have been asked to participate in this breakfast briefing, to give an update about what's happening in the world of financial services. I see many, many, many familiar faces, so many of you probably know exactly what's happening in the world of financial services, given the work that you do. But certainly, I want to thank the Chamber for hosting and organizing the breakfast briefing on financial services today. And as you know, the fact that financial services is an integral part of the Cayman Islands economy, and therefore an integral part of our local commerce, it is certainly not lost on this audience. And I'm happy to be here to apprise you of recent developments in this area. So during my opening remarks today, which will be brief, I'll speak more generally as the Ministry's Chief Officer, Dr. Basdeo, will speak in more detail on certain aspects during his presentation. Nonetheless, at the end of the presentation and during the question and answer session, I will aim to add additional context and additional information or color as appropriate. That said, I want to underscore that the government and the ministry are more than willing to engage with the Chamber on matters of mutual interest. So our top headline for today is that financial services continues to maintain its historic position as the driver of Cayman's economy. We continue to account for more than 50% of our GDP, as well as approximately 15% of overall employment. Direct fees from the financial services sector account for roughly 40% of the government revenue. From a jurisdictional comparative perspective, according to the recent Global Financial Services Index, which rated countries out of 110 countries, Cayman is among the top 25 best financial centers of the world. In addition, for the 9th consecutive year, the Cayman Islands has been named the world's #1 specialized financial center, according to the Bankers Magazine 2017 survey. Now, we maintained this position despite 2017 being a challenging year for countries with financial services industries generally, and for Cayman, it was certainly no exception. In fact, during the past year or so, we had assessors from the OECD's Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange for Tax, or for Information for Tax Purposes, and the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. And we underwent the EU's screening process to identify jurisdictions that it considered to be non-compliant in tax cooperation. While again, Dr. Basdeo will elaborate on these in his presentation, I must point out that the government's proactive as well as reactive response to these initiatives can be measured in the more than 40 pieces of financial services related legislation that went before the Legislative Assembly in 2017, in addition to the numerous face-to-face and written engagements which took place throughout the year. And for this, the government is very appreciative of everyone in both the public and private sectors for your great efforts in assisting us to develop appropriate enhancements to our legislation and our practices, and also helping us to develop responses to the various requests for information, etc. You see, appropriate partnership with the financial services industry is part of the foundation to being a successful international financial center, which is to the benefit of all stakeholders. So, we're just at the beginning of Q2 for 2018, and as expected, this year has been no less challenging, no less busy, no less engaging. We have sought to begin to implement recent legislative changes. We have begun to anticipate and develop further legislative changes that may be necessary during the course of the year. And we have continued to increase our international engagement efforts going forward. In anticipation of this activity, The 2018 and 2019 budget increases for the ministry approved late last year amount to roughly $2 million to the financial services departments, $2.5 million to CEMA, and $780,000 to industry associations per annum. This is a significant increase in investment across the board, and as Minister, I will continue to fight for further increases as and when necessary and justifiable to continue to support the work of the ministry, the work of CEMA, and the work of the industry alike. Given that, you all are here because you have a vested or other interest in financial services. So I don't really anticipate any objections as to the increase in government budget to support the industry, particularly in the light of industry's recent continued advocacy for more funds. But just for the record, the overarching objective of this government is to ensure that our jurisdiction continues to thrive and to attract all of the sound business that we can possibly attract in as many lines of financial services business as it makes sense for us to pursue. Of course, in doing so, our reputation as being commercially innovative and adaptable, yet a suitably regulated jurisdiction which adheres to global standards will be key. Hence, our increased engagement in the United Kingdom, in Europe, in the US, and Asia to attempt to debunk myths and to educate key audiences. Ultimately, the evidence of our success will not only be the reinforced strength of our industry locally, but the strength of economies and societies globally, as well as our own. Together, we must develop the fact-based, data-driven messaging points to help tell the reality of the value-addedness that, as a jurisdiction, we bring to the global and offshore domestic economies. And we must each, through our own spheres of influence, not shy away from telling our story in a convincing and compelling manner. In fact, industry and government must become even more proactive in doing so, because to do otherwise, we run the risk of others defining our reality for us. And I don't think I need to elaborate on the dangers that will bring. Our biggest challenge right now as a preeminent international financial center is not about regulatory compliance. It is a perception problem. A perception problem which, as an industry, we have allowed, in some cases, to linger, and in other cases, to fester, because those of us who know better either have not taken the time, or in some cases, quite frankly, couldn't be bothered to address the misconceptions and misperceptions often perpetuated by popular media and otherwise. We have a great story to tell, and I'm sure I don't have to convince you of that fact. But collectively, we must do more to tell our story. So with that, I look forward with working with the Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce as a stakeholder, and as the Cayman Islands, as we continue to advocate, to demonstrate leadership, to cooperate, and to innovate in order to maintain and enhance our status as a leading international financial center. Thank you, and I hope you have a very enjoyable and productive morning through the course of our discussions.